Hello, everybody. Welcome to our next session from Snore to Score. Add value to your new member orientation with Kelly Tinnen. Kelly is the president and owner of Kelly Tinnen Consulting, LLC, a learning and development consulting firm based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She has a passion for learning. Kelly's goal is to help organizations succeed. She is aiming to be different and unique while making a measurable impact on adult learners. Kelly is skilled in instructional design, organizational development, and training techniques. She strives to develop training and lead organizations in a fresh and innovative manner. Her background includes business project management, marketing, real estate, as well as learning and development. She holds a real estate license in New Mexico, where she was the top producing broker for many years. She has been a contributor for real estate publications like Inman News. She calls Albuquerque home, where a 9-year-old English bulldog named Momo calls the shots. Well, Kelly, you get to call the shots for the next hour to help us with new member orientation.
That's right. Momo's still doing her morning snoozing here, so I guess I'll take the reins this morning. Good morning, everybody. So good to see you. I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces today. That is so awesome. So I'm going to take you through how to add value to your new member orientation today. So we're really going to go, hopefully, from Snore to Score and give you some ideas on how to develop not just an orientation one and done program, but really an onboarding process for your new members. And so how many of you have this fear or concerned your members may feel this way during an orientation?
Bueller. 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 Here. Bueller. Bueller.
Yeah, so we don't want to have our members have that whole Ferris Bueller moment experience during our orientation. And so I want to take you through some active steps today that you can hopefully think about and implement as you are revising, developing, or creating your orientation and onboarding program. So thank you so much to Cindy for the introduction. A little bit about me. This is 4-year-old Kelly, 4-year-old me back in 1984. So if you do the math, you can figure out how old I am. I'm not shy. Although I will admit, maybe a little bit shamefully, I was scared of the Thriller debut at this time when that video debuted. I have since overcome that fear. And I roamed the East Mountains of New Mexico. I was actually born here, born in New Mexico, raised in raised in Arizona, and moved back to New Mexico where I am today. And Quarantine Photo 2020, that little meatloaf right there runs my household, but I wouldn't have it any other way. She is really my pride and joy. Her name is Momo, which means peach in Japanese. And she is a 9-year-old English bulldog, and I hope she knows how much we really love her in our household. And I love good food and fun here in New Mexico. I was telling somebody the other day, you have to come during October because we have the Greek festival and the balloon fiesta, and so there's a lot of things going on. So October is the time to come here. And so let's talk about our new broker orientation, and let's really talk about onboarding. And again, I encourage you to use the chat. This is, of course, an active discussion, an active course. I will be monitoring that chat. Oh, yay, we have somebody from Albuquerque in here as well. Woo-hoo. We're really a community of practice. So you may hear some new things today. You may hear things you've heard before, and you may hear stuff that reminds you of something. And so I want to encourage us all to share in the chat as well and share our experiences, maybe what's working, what's not, some new ideas as we go through our material today. And so really, what are we building? So I want to think of the association and our association as a house. And it is a home to our members. And in this home, it has many rooms. And so what are we building together with our members? Today, we're going to talk about promoting attitudes that represent the value of association membership. So what value can the association bring to our members? And we're going to examine some course practices that will engage members in the association onboarding process. So we're going to talk about the orientation, but I'm kind of not the one and done. My husband loves college basketball, and so that's where that term comes from. But it's really a process. So we have our orientation class that's encompassed in a bigger picture of onboarding. So what's really happening with our members as they come into our association, as they attend orientation, and what's happening afterwards. And so we'll break that down. And then we'll discuss how comprehensive orientation and onboarding can improve member buy-in. So we can get more buy-in from our members, but we can also help to reduce and improve some different metrics that we may be looking at as the association as a whole. So that some of our stakeholders and our boards may be looking at. And so as we continue to build our home and to build our practice, what attitudes represent the value of association membership? So an association, although our members may not realize it, is more than dues. So I want to look at really the who, what, where, why, and how of our association membership. So if we have an understanding of who our members are, what they do, how they do it, where they're coming from, it can help us build that comprehensive orientation and then that onboarding program. So let's break down the who. Who are our members? What is the journey that our members are on? So statistically speaking, I've used some stats that are from various entities, Gallup being one of them. They do a lot of employee studies. And I've been looking a lot at data that pertains to the future of work. So what does the future workforce look like? And although association members are not employees of our organization, and oftentimes they're not employees of their brokerage, the data still relates, and there's still a lot of correlation because they're still getting into the real estate industry. They're in a lot of ways owning their own small business and their piece of the pie. And so what does that really look like from an employee standpoint? So something that stood out to me that was very interesting. 33% of U.S. employees are currently engaged in their job or work. So I've heard, although I haven't seen the stat, that the number has gone up a bit since the pandemic, which actually is quite fascinating. But 33% of employees who are currently working are engaged in their work. So that means we have over half of employees out there in the workforce that aren't engaged in what they're doing. Maybe they don't feel aligned with the mission, with the vision, with the cause. And so they're not really engaged in what they're doing. And therefore, the number one reason that people change jobs is to create more career opportunities. So why are people getting into the real estate industry? Interestingly enough, it's not money, which we'll look at some of those stats as well. But maybe they're changing jobs. Maybe it's a second career for a lot of individuals. But these individuals in the workforce are changing jobs to create more career and growth opportunities. And so that can be an opportunity or a gap that essentially the association could potentially fill for some of their members in terms of how we recruit and retain membership, which we'll talk about in a bit. So looking at some statistics from an NAR study about how brokers choose their career in real estate, money was not the top three. So again, going back to our other stats, career growth and opportunities, money was not the top three. Although I know most brokers want to likely make some money because like myself, I do enjoy eating, sometimes more than I should. And so we want to make a living at it, but money's not the top three. And if we think of our up-and-comers, our millennials are already somewhat embedded into the workforce, but we have that Gen Z group, that group that's just graduating high school, that's starting to get their feet wet into a career and into the workforce. And they're aligned, they want to align with careers where they feel value, they feel purpose. And so money really wasn't the top three. Most realtor members that were surveyed, and these were realtor members, were attracted to flexible hours, which I kind of chuckled. I said, because I was thinking the first 2 years aren't very flexible, but after that, it does get better. 64% had an interest in real estate. So again, thinking about who our members are, who are our customer, who are we serving, and what is their journey. They're interested in flexibility. They have interest in the real estate industry. They're looking for career growth and opportunity. Maybe they're leaving a career or a job, or they're retiring from a career where they just didn't feel purpose and they just weren't really engaged. Now, when we talk about the onboarding process, now we have, again, in the onboarding process, we have the orientation, and then we have the bigger scope here of the onboarding process. Only 20% of employees feel that their employer does a good job of onboarding. So again, where are our gaps when we're bringing people into the fold, when they're attending our orientation, and what's happening afterwards? Are we sending them on their way like dandelions in the wind, or do we have some sort of process to keep them engaged in the association? So again, I mentioned, while realtors are not employees of the association and they're not employees of their brokerage, their experience is the same. This is a career for them. This is a job that they're doing, something that they want to feel purpose, they want to be aligned with the mission on. And so the experience for them in the onboarding and the orientation process feels very similar. So the what? What interactions with new members? So the interactions with new members are going to impact the brand and the image. So your association has a brand and has an image that's portrayed to the public and to members of your association. And so what does that look like? How do agents, brokerages, and the association work together? Because it is a partnership. And how are we conveying that to members? So what are we doing to convey that? Are we promoting things like advocating for private property rights and homeownership? What sort of relationship do we have with brokerages? Do we have an adversarial relationship, or is it really a give and take where we can work together to help agents succeed in the industry and it benefits everybody? So what does that really look like? And also considering what the association does versus the state association, maybe versus the national association, and versus our regulatory bodies. How do we differentiate those to our members and help them understand really that, for lack of a better term, that chain of command in some ways? So that process, what does that look like? And how are we conveying that to our members? As the association, this is what we can do for you. And this is how you can get involved with the state versus the national association. And this is what our regulatory body does. And this is how we all can work together. And what does that relationship look like as well? Do we have a relationship where we can all work together? Association versus state versus regulatory. Because in the end, it all benefits our members and that member experience. So the where and the why. Where are the gaps? So thinking about the 20% of employees that believe that their company does a good job of onboarding. That means we have 80% that feel that there's some gaps. So where are those gaps? Again, we've got Gen Zs who we may be onboarding. We'll talk more about them in a bit here. But where are some gaps? They want to be involved in something that's aligned with the mission. There's more socially conscious. They use a lot of tech tools, YouTube, Snapchat. They feel that there's a little bit of uncertainty in the future. So where are some of those gaps? And not just with our Gen Z and our millennial groups, but even members of other demographics. Where are those gaps, and how can we fill them? And really thinking about the why. Why do our members join? Maybe even asking members, why do you join? So really shifting that attitude. Some of our associations are aligned with an MLS or more than one MLS, and some own their MLS. And really, how can we work to shift the attitude from, I just need MLS access, I just need that vessel that I can put my property in and send out to other members, to really about data integrity. So the MLS, from that database standpoint, to really promoting data integrity. The MLS is a system for data integrity. It helps us assess and maintain the health of the real estate market. And this is how it's used. This is who uses it. The members of the public rely on it. We have corporate businesses that may rely on the data and call on us as an association to give them some data about the health of the real estate market, as well as the public. And so really working to shift those attitudes about the MLS is just this database and I just need to put my listings in it, to data integrity. So yeah, and I recognize that some of you don't offer MLS access. Yes, I recognize that. And I wouldn't look at that as one less thing to offer. You just have different things to offer. And it may be a situation where maybe you don't align with an MLS, but maybe there's a way that you guys can partner and you can help complement each other's business efforts. Again, really thinking, going back to who is our target client, who is our member, and what are their needs, and putting their needs first. And so, Stephanie, thank you for that. I definitely recognize that, but I wouldn't look at it like that, like it's one less thing to offer. You just have different things to offer. And then really building those relationships with members. Really, really important. Relationships build trust, and relationships build loyalty. How can we help brokers and agents understand the relationship between the association and their business, the support that the association can offer, and their business? So looking at your opportunities, looking at your orientation and your onboarding as a way to build relationships with members, these individuals that will be future volunteers, future RPAC contributors, future promoters of the industry. So some things to think about. Do you know their name? Is your staff learning their name? Do they know your building? Do they know what benefits are afforded to them? What products and tools? When you answer the phone, how do we answer the phone? Do you answer the phone by using their name, by asking for their name? So are we really forging and building those relationships with members? And are we therefore over long-term building trust and building loyalty? And also our orientation and this onboarding process gives us the ability to set expectations with members. Now, remembering that members are going to get out of their association what they put in. So it's not a give. It definitely is a give and take. but how to set those expectations and also to set those expectations of behavior. So realtor members are expected to represent the realtor brand in this way. And what does that look like? How are we wrapping in code of ethics? How are we wrapping in pathways to professionalism? And how are we saying, no, we won't accept this behavior because you represent the community, private property rights, homeownership rights, and those sorts of things. So building relationships, really, really vital, really important. And these are things that your orientation can do for you. And so now when we talk about orientation, I'm going to talk about it as a process, and a 3-step process. Orientation is an event inside of a bigger process. And so we're going to examine course practices in that class, but also how are we attracting members and how are we continuing to stay engaged with them? So in terms of attraction, what elements of the realtor brand are being promoted to enlist new members? So if you want to share in the chat, any of you currently do any sort of promoting of the realtor brand, like maybe Realtors Give Back, anything maybe that NAR is doing that we can kind of incorporate into some of our local into our local promotion. So some examples. Absolutely. Realtors Give Back, the realtor brand. Yes, that's who we are. Thank you. Absolutely. They've got a lot of NAR has a lot of information that we can use even at the local level, that's who we are brand. C2EX, Realtor Safety, that's who we are. Absolutely. These are all things, elements of the realtor brand that can be promoted to enlist new members. Highlighting community projects. So individuals, when we think of the consumer, individuals, they don't just buy a house. Like, I don't just buy a house. I buy a culture. I buy a lifestyle. I buy into a community. And I'm buying into that community to make it better. And so how are realtors contributing to that? When we think about it, realtors are good neighbors. Absolutely, the good neighbor awards and the good neighbor affiliation. Absolutely. So highlighting community projects. What are realtors doing to stand shoulder to shoulder with community members to help build a better community, to help build that sense of belonging, to help protect and promote private property and home ownership rights? Yes, Fair Haven, absolutely. Fair housing, absolutely. So building on that value of home ownership, private property rights, that sense of community, good neighbors, that's who we are. So what elements of the realtor brand are really being used to bring in new members? Affiliates. Yes, affiliates who enter the real estate business. That is a great avenue as well. And that leads me to my next comment here. What are associations doing to attract new members? So we have affiliates who enter the real estate business. Absolutely. I know several who have gone that route here locally. Now, we know that based on statistics, a lot of realtors enter the industry due to, their second career. Maybe they're leaving one industry, they're retiring from one industry and getting into the real estate field, but also thinking about what is the association doing to attract new members? So we have our up-and-comers. We have our, absolutely, member benefits. Absolutely. We have our Gen Z. Our millennials are already starting to get grounded in their careers. Our Gen Z are up-and-comers. So when we think about the future of work and we think about non-traditional education paths. And absolutely, Stephanie, career advancement through certifications and designations. Absolutely. The number one reason why people change careers is career growth and advancement. Are we promoting certifications and designations? Are we promoting non-traditional education paths? And what are we doing to get in front of maybe even at the high school level, but maybe those 2-year and even those 4-year degree paths? What are we doing to get in front of these individuals to talk about, to attract people to the real estate industry? Can we partner or mentor students? Is there an opportunity for us as an association to create some sort of maybe internship to attract new members, a partnership, a mentorship, mentoring students who are on non-traditional career paths, or maybe in those career paths that are related to the industry? Yeah, job fairs, colleges, absolutely. Information events on current issues. You have done fairs in high schools. Awesome. Okay, yeah, they're signing up in droves because of joining realtor brokerages. Yeah, and I know that the market here in Albuquerque is nuts. And so I know that there's an element of that as well. But we have to think long term, and really we're going to have ebbs and flows in our business, but really thinking long term, what are we going to do to create some stability in our industry and to attract those new members when the market is stable, which I wouldn't really call it stable right now. I would call it insane. But what are we going to do to keep some stability and to attract new members? So that can be another thing as well. And many of you are doing that. Yeah, exactly. Verna, yeah, it's crazy. And again, going back to relationships build partnerships, build trust, build loyalty. What does the relationship between the brokerages and the association look like? So again, is the relationship modeled as a partnership? So working together with the brokerages, working together with other associations where necessary to really promote that real estate industry and to really help our members navigate their benefits. And other things to think about, little things. We talked about knowing their names. We talked about addressing their name when when your new members call. What does your new member appointment look like? Do they have some sort of appointment, and is there any kind of follow-up to that appointment? Do they get a thank you card? Do they get a phone call before the orientation class happens? Do they get some sort of swag package before their orientation happens? And so what does that look like as we're attracting them and bringing them into our home? Thank you, Judy. I see your comment. Internship program with local community college district. Those who join your association have a leg up and are more professional, ethical. That's awesome. I actually would love to connect with you to hear more about that. That sounds great. So now we've brought our members in. Now, what does the onboarding look like? And so what does the orientation piece look like? And so that can look like many things. And as we were talking in the chat, we had some who said, well, we're not part of an MLS. And we may have some that are part of an MLS. We may have some that are part of more than one. We may have some that own their MLS. And so the beauty is everything looks different, and there's a lot of flexibility in what can be offered. And as Judy mentioned with the internship program, that it has helped with professionalism and ethical practice. So are we talking about code of ethics? Most consumers and a lot of realtors, in fact, don't understand the distinction between a realtor and a real estate licensee. And so what does the realtor brand mean? What does it mean to them as brokers? And how do they convey that to members of the community? We talked about fair housing. So fair housing. One of the beautiful things about our industry is the fact that we can help people with the right to home ownership. Something that wars have been fought over, something that people in other countries do not have the right to have. And we have the beauty and the privilege to be able to help anybody, no matter who you are or where you come from, to help you build a sense of security and community wherever you want. And so how is that being conveyed to members? That is an honor, and that is a huge deal. And how are we making members a part of that process? If you are affiliated with a multiple listing service, really transferring that thought process from it's just that vessel that transfers information to really data integrity. It's the integrity of the data. And this is what we're responsible for as agents, is we're responsible for the integrity of the data. And this is who relies on that information. The public relies on that information. Different corporate entities may rely on that information for relocation or for setting housing allowances, whatever that may look like. And so really getting brokers, your brokers, your agents, to take ownership of that and to understand what role data integrity plays in home ownership. And also products and tools. So that business partnership, I go back to that partnership. Again, partnerships really build trust and build loyalty. So what are the products and tools that we offer? So I saw in the chat many mentions of different things. And so certifications and designations, for instance, for career growth and opportunities. So affiliate members. So what are some of those products and tools? And not just laying it out, these are the products and tools that we have, but really, how are these going to benefit your business? And how might they complement or work together with some of the things that your brokerage offers? And you might also include things like safety. I think having the safety discussion is really important. A lot of us understand getting into the industry that it is now our job to meet strange people at strange properties for a living, but we don't really understand what that looks like. And we don't understand what that looks like for sellers who are listing their homes and how they need to protect their homes while they're listed, and what that looks like when working with buyers. And so really helping bring that discussion into the fold as well. Creating partnerships. And then the last piece is engaging our members. And so in our orientation class and outside, what is the overall member experience? And so let's talk about the experience from the attract side. When we're bringing them into the fold, what is their experience? Maybe we're out in the field promoting to your colleges, and we're bringing somebody into the fold. Well, what's their member experience the second they walk in the door? What does that look like? Are they being addressed by name? Are they getting a tour of the building? Are they understanding, really what's available to them? And then in their orientation course, what's that experience like? So are they getting an overview of products and tools? Are they understanding that business partnership? And then after the orientation, what's happening to help with that comprehensive member experience? What materials are being provided to members? What are the attitudes and feelings of those initiating your member experience? So are our member support team, are they really busy and kind of grumpy because we're really busy with a lot of new members? Or are we grumpy answering the phone? Are we delivering our orientation with a little bit of a grumpiness going on? Active learning techniques. So are we using active learning techniques in our orientation classes? And so active learning techniques really help with transfer of learning. And so again, approaching our class not from a one and done perspective, but what's going to happen before they enter the class, when they enter the orientation class, and once they exit the orientation class. So whether your orientation class itself can look different. So your orientation class can be asynchronous. So that can be where they log into a learning management system, let's say, and they take a self-paced orientation course. Oh, awesome. Okay, after members take your orientation, Verna, they get a packet. Then once a month or year, they get a member newsletter. Okay, perfect. So it sounds like you guys have some great things going on as well. So active learning can be tough with a virtual orientation. So it doesn't have to be. So let me share some tips with you here. So asynchronous, we have a learning management system. You take them into a learning management system. They do their self-paced course within the allotted amount of time, and then they receive their certification, or they get their check mark, because I know from a mandating standpoint that it has to be done. We can deliver it in person with active learning techniques. We can deliver an engaging class using the virtual live setting by utilizing the chat, just to name a few things off the top of my head, by utilizing polls. We can create a scavenger hunt. So we can have 4 or 5 questions. All right, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. I want you to introduce yourself to your team, so to speak, and approach it like we're a community of practice. You may work for different brokerages, but here, under the Realtor House, we're a community of practice, and you may be volunteering with this individual. You may be doing a transaction with this individual. So get to know your community. Have them do a scavenger hunt. Have them go to the NAR site. Look for some information on a certain NAR study. Have them go and search some RPAC information. Have them go to your website and look for affiliate information, and then bring everybody back together to discuss that. We play one of the orientations that I teach. We play a Jeopardy game, and we do it online. So we have each individual in the class selects the next individual to go. They pick a question, and we discuss it as a group. And so the virtual environment, and I know many of us are experiencing that. And I know from studies that it's not going to go away. And in fact, it might become kind of the leader in some of the training delivery. It's a different environment, and you have to structure your class differently to approach the virtual learning environment, but it definitely can be done. I see some other in the chat here, 4 days, 3 hours each. We give our new members an incentive. We see 10% consistently, no matter one of our challenges. Okay. All right. Let's see. We do lunch. Yeah. How long are your all orientation? The one I teach is 6 hours. It's broken up into 2 segments. It's broken up into 3 in the morning, which is association and MLS. And in the afternoon, it's completely products and tools. We do a product and tool tour and demonstrate how to use them. And it's for 6 hours of continuing education. So continuing education might be something that you want to consider offering for your orientation course as well. And that's going to obviously involve your regulatory body, and it's going to depend on their guidelines and things as well. This all leads to retention. And there are a lot of factors. Yeah, Gail, many members are dealing with kids at home doing remote stuff, attending. Yeah, it can be. And there have to be some concessions for that sort of stuff. We have to not be so rigid in how we do things sometimes. You know, I've been teaching a class, and I've had individuals, you know, who have to go off camera because you know, maybe they've got to help a kid out with something for 10 or 15 minutes. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just the new world that we live in, and we have to be able to be agile and work with that. Awesome. Okay. Seeing lots of great things in the comments. I love this sharing because I think these are little nuggets that we can all pick up from each other. And then lastly, this really encompasses retention. And so long-term, what is the goal? It's not one and done, but it's really to retain members. And I recognize that I don't have a pie in the sky attitude about this, so to speak. I recognize retention of members has a lot to do with the experiences in the market. But what are we doing to retain members, and not just retain members, but those members that are more engaged, that are trusting, that are invested? Are we seeing different numbers in volunteering? Are we seeing different numbers in RPAC contributions? So what does the data really look like? Because we don't want to just be checking a box. Our association is there to serve the members, but also has to survive. So what does the retention numbers look like? And our orientation and our onboarding process long-term should have the objectives, or think about it from the objectives of increasing member use of products and tools, increasing volunteerism, and reducing complaints through our professional standards department, so code of ethics complaints, and reducing, if we're affiliated with an MLS, reducing compliance warnings and compliance fines. So really, what's the return? So what's the return? What can our stakeholders, when they ask, okay, what's happening, or our board asks, what's happening with membership? Really, what's the return? What's the return on your expectation? And what's the return for our members? So some data that we can look at as we structure our orientation and our onboarding. So our orientation and then our bigger onboarding picture, what's happening to follow up with new members? 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Is your membership retention increasing? Are we doing exit surveys? An exit survey, we know why some people leave the business. I get that. But an exit survey can give us a lot of information about not just why people are leaving the business, but things that we could maybe be doing better for our members. Like, do they know about the products and tools? Did they ever volunteer? Well, why didn't they volunteer? Did they ever contribute to RPAC? Well, why not? Why not? So maybe considering exit interviews and looking at that data and being able to track, okay, well, we've got people that are leaving because of market conditions, but we also have a substantial number of people leaving because maybe they aren't getting support here, maybe with their brokerage, or maybe they weren't getting association support. And that's something that we can potentially fix. Are we tracking our volunteerism? Do we see an increase in people seeking out or members seeking out volunteer opportunities? Do we have metrics to support that based on this onboarding process? Do we have more people volunteering? I see Michelle says we promote education, networking events, community involvement events, as well as our promotion of working with the realtor. That's awesome. Getting them, yes, absolutely, Travis, 100%. Getting them active on committees really helps with new member retention. Absolutely, it does. And I would also say that it helps them. I can't remember who it was who mentioned, but the internship program, I would align that the same way. It helps. I think it just helps them become more vested and really learn more about the industry. It gives them a more well-rounded view. So 100%, I love that. Are we seeing an increase in Realtor Political Action Committee funds? So are we seeing more contributions come in based on our orientation, based on how we're structuring that value that realtors bring and the protecting and promoting of homeownership and private property rights? Are we seeing an increase in contributions? And what we're doing and what I think is really valuable to promote is the fact that we're building a community of practice. So we're not just an association where you come in and get your lockbox, you get a free sandwich that's sitting on the table, and you leave. But we're building a community. Our members are coming in, they're talking to our staff about what's going on in the marketplace. They're really a part of that community, supporting the notion that realtors really help support consumers by owning and investing in their own piece of the community. And so really, that's what's at stake, and that's what's involved. And that's really what their part is, what the broker's part is, what the agent's part is, and how the association comes into play with that. So we're building a community of practice. We're not just an association, but we're a community of brokers who help build a better community for our consumers. And so when we talk about building your house, now building a house takes time, and you can't build a house without having a foundation. And then you build the frame, and then you put in the wall, the windows and the roof and all of that, not necessarily in that order. But building your house takes time. Many of you have certain components of this house already in place, but what can you do to improve that house? What updates can you make to that house? Or maybe you need to add the garage, or maybe you need to add the pool to the house. So what does that look like? Don't take it all on at one time. Start small. If you have an orientation course, what can I do to attract new members? What can I do to retain my members? What am I doing 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to help engage our members? So starting small, or start with building that orientation course and then build your experience from there. Consider your needs. Now, I know from the orientation perspective, there are obviously it's mandated that we have an orientation as an association, and that may look a little bit different. Some of us have an affiliation with an MLS, some of us don't. Some of us have different products and tools, so this looks different for all of us. We're very unique in that sense. So consider what you need based on your members. Maybe considering some of those metrics. We really have low RPAC contributions. So what can we build in to our process to help bring that number up? And then also considering your members. I see in the chat that some of you have surveyed members, but what do your members need? Again, your members are your customer. What is it that they need? Are you asking them when they call, like, hey, just a quick question. We're looking at restructuring our orientation process. What would have been really helpful to you? Where are some of the gaps? And so I have a challenge for everybody. What are you committed to doing today? How are you going to start small? What are you committed to doing to help bring your orientation from a snore to score, so to speak? Does your orientation class need some revamping, need some active training techniques? Do you maybe need to add on a piece on how maybe you could work to attract new members, or how are we going to engage our members after the orientation is complete? So, dropping in the chat a couple of takeaways. What are you committed to doing today? Starting small. Let's see what we got here. Oh, thank you, Judy. Well, it'll be recorded, so maybe he can take a look at that. Scavenger hunt. Yeah. Jamie, if you need some input on that, I can give you some input on what I do and how that's structured. It's really, really easy. Yeah, and those that have been in the business for a while don't find it useful. That was a big surprise to hear. Okay, great. Scavenger hunt and Jeopardy. Again, CJ, if you need some tips about that, I can send it to you. The scavenger hunt. Yeah, no problem. New member packet. Outside what they're getting. Virtual scavenger hunt. That's awesome. Awesome. So I have a handout to share with you, a Google Drive. You can just download this. And it's a quick handout. A selfie scavenger hunt would be funny. Absolutely. So I'm kind of picking up some ideas here that I hadn't thought of as well. So in that Google Drive is just a quick handout with some sample course outlines and some sample ideas that you can take and implement into your orientation, into your onboarding process, or whatever that looks like. You can take and modify those and take some of those ideas. So feel free to download that in that Google Drive. I love the comments and the sharing. That's awesome. We're all picking up some great ideas. So I want to thank everybody for their time today and allowing me to share some ideas around your new member orientation and that onboarding process. Again, my name is Kelly Tinnen. I look forward to seeing you guys and connecting with you guys here at Rapid. Some of you I've seen and talked to yesterday. I look forward to meeting more of you. And I want to thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your sharing. Not a problem, Stephanie. I will make sure and tag you so that I don't forget, and I will get that out to everybody in the next couple of days. Awesome. So glad to see the ideas. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to seeing you maybe this afternoon at another session. And we'll see you soon.